All of the fighters that held the BMF bout has been 0-6 in their careers. If they are willing to become the BMF, they are going out like a BMF. Let's start at the very top of this imaginary iceberg of this video, where we first talk about all the BMF title fights. Jorge Masvidal versus Nate Diaz. So what started off as a gimmick fight became an actual championship bout for the baddest fighter alive. Masvidal, coming off 2 crazy knockout fights against Darren Till and Ben Askren, now fights Nathan Diaz. To make the featured bout more glorified, The Rock is basically the mascot of the BMF championship. But the one fact about this video is that no one defends a BMF bout, even in the very first fight. In a press conference, Nate Diaz taunted that he is defending for the BMF bout.
He was defending the baddest motherfucker in the game.
That doesn't age well, where he loses the fight. And not in Nate Diaz fashion too, which was the worst part of it. In the first minute of the fight, Nate gets dropped by a kick to the face. He showed durability, rocking Masvidal back, but the fight had to stop. At the end of round 3, it was declared a doctor stoppage because Nate's eye was not well enough to continue. So to start off this baddest MF championship reign, it was due to a technicality.
At the end of round number 3, due to a doctor stoppage, due to the laceration of Nate Diaz's eye, referee Dan Mergliotta has declared the winner by TKO, and now the winner of the BMF belt, Jorge Masvidal.
We will obviously talk about the BMF champion Masvidal later in the video, but what happened to Nate Diaz? He took a break again, where it was 19 pay-per-views later where he made a return back to the octagon, only to lose to Leon Edwards, which was still a good fight, and he was still the people's champ, where the only highlight was the round 5 punch that rocked Leon. But then he took another big break 16 pay-per-views later, initially booked to fight Chimaev so that Nate will retire and end his career having no wins after the BMF fight with Masvidal. But luckily, through a string of weird events, in comes Tony Ferguson to save the day, and also other weird coincidences so that Nate gets the win. It was Nate Diaz, of course, but it was still an iffy end to his prime and career, having only 4 fights in the last 7 years of his career, and it was 2-2. Justin Gaethje versus Dustin Poirier 2. The BMF championship was rekindled for a pay-per-view that needed a headline so badly because there was no real championship fight booked. UFC 291's main event was Dustin Poirier versus Justin Gaethje 2. These two fighters were eventually meant to fight again after proving to themselves they are still the top contenders of the flyweight division. Having submission losses each against the champion Charles Oliveira, they proved themselves to defend their ranks. Dustin finished Michael Chandler and Justin won against Fiziev. So instead of an interim bout for a pay-per-view headline, they just decided to do a BMF championship fight as a quick lifeline. Which, looking back, I kind of wish they just said it was for an interim bout. I don't care if it's the pay-per-view main event. Just a quick backstory for the first fight. It was actually also a main event, but it was a fight night. Dustin TKO'd Justin in the later rounds, proving he has more 5-round experience. So the revenge fight came, and it's looking like Justin is the underdog. The first round is very competitive, where they feel each other out, and they also brawl really good too. Gaethje showed a lot more technical skill than their first fight, moving more fluidly and more conventional. Not to mention his open stance knowledge, where he came in with a 2 straight, but switched to southpaw during that and then did a southpaw 1-2. Basically a modified 1-1-2 that surprised Dustin. It was only a matter of time before Justin showed his final weapon, where he goes for the open stance weakness, the 1-2 head kick, but would be known as the headshot dead kick.
Declaring the winner by knockout, and now the new BMF title winner, Justin the Highlight
It's just picture perfect, and it's a mirror of the head kick that Leon Edwards used to win the welterweight title. Same exact technique. You shot the right hand out and threw the right kick behind it.
It's so crazy. I surprised myself, let me tell you. I threw that against Fiziev one time, and I was like, oh, that was nice.
Just a quick flashback, and yes, during the Fiziev fight, Fiziev was fighting in southpaw in round 2. He threw the first open stance kick that surprised Justin. And you know he liked that technique because he tried to do it straight after as well. I guess the curse that I mentioned earlier, that every BMF fighter never defended the bout, was... it's already a bit iffy now, but I guess Dustin has a win over Justin before, so he's kind of defending that score over him this fight. And now it's even. Now the score is even after this KO loss. And Jorge Masvidal is still catching strays after leaving the bout.
Gotta ask you, how are you enjoying retired life? I know you're a busy man with your promotion.
Making wagers that I probably shouldn't have. I put $100,000 on DP on Dustin Poirier. Kids, I'm sorry. You gotta go to public school now.
100K USD is insane. Also, now, what happened to Dustin? He got the best outcome for every fighter in this video. He won by TKO against Benoit Saint-Denis and got the title shot. Sadly, he lost that fight against Islam and is looking like just a title guardian rather than a champion. 0-3 now in his title shots. Well, 0-4 if you count the BMF title championship. And it's looking very close to retirement for DP. Justin Gaethje versus Max Holloway. Now we go the most recent official BMF fight against the champion Justin Gaethje and Max Holloway for UFC 300. But before that, the BMF curse already affected Justin. If he stayed patient, or if Islam stayed patient too, there would have been the actual lightweight title fight between these two. Because Justin said he hates fighting in Abu Dhabi and he needs to wait to recover for the giant title match. So he settled on a quick BMF matchup between him and Max Holloway. What could possibly go wrong, right? The easiest unanimous decision win of your life, and pads out his record before the title fight that he needs to win. So what can go wrong? That. The worst possible outcome happened. Justin got KO'd in BMF fashion and loses the BMF bout and his reserved title shot. Justin had a broken nose since round 1, so he was treading pretty well until the knockout. But looking back, yeah, he was like a walking KO highlight waiting to happen. The new BMF champion is Max Holloway.
By knockout and new undisputed UFC BMF champion of the world, the pride of Hawaii, Max Holloway.
Hey, first things first, give it up to Gaethje, a real BMF. He had so much to lose and nothing to gain from this fight, but he gave it to me for you guys.
Now let's go down a further layer to talk about the careers of the BMF champions. What happened to Masvidal? Since the BMF ownership, his reign wasn't so good. Well, I shouldn't really say reign. Well, I shouldn't really say wasn't good either. It was more like awful. That win over Nate Diaz was his last one. Because of the surge of popularity Masvidal was, being in the UFC during that time, he got 2 title shots. He lost the fight via unanimous decision against the reigning champ at the time, Kamaru Usman, and only to get brutally KO'd in their second fight. And then straight after that whole drama fight against Colby, which has enough content to go for a whole hour where you can just watch someone else talk about it, but basically, he lost that fight too. And then being extremely old for the weight class now, loses again, and for the last time against Gilbert Burns. Granted, Masvidal knew it was a good time to hang the gloves. If he kept going at 40 years old, you know there would have been a crazy KO loss somewhere down the line. A sad fate for this fighter, but not the worst. Considering he did get 2 title shots since the BMF win, I think that 100k betting loss was the biggest downfall moment for him. What happened to Justin Gaethje? This is obviously recent and just speculation because he hasn't fought since UFC 300 during the recording of this video, but things aren't looking good for him. He stated way back in the Fiziev fight that he only wants another shot for the bout. After that, he's retiring.
I'm taking one more run at the title, but I ain't gonna be around much longer, so I'm so glad you guys got to enjoy this with me.
So he lost the title shot reserve now after getting KO'd by Holloway. He needs to obviously rest for about a year, which he also stated. The reserve title shot is replaced with Dustin versus Islam, which Dustin Poirier lost to, making the title shot even less likely for Justin Gaethje to win. If Poirier won the bout by beating Islam, surely there was a small circumstance where Justin could have gone for a trilogy fight for the lightweight bout and won it. But yeah, Islam is still champ, and as time passes, the title shot seat is slowly getting flooded, with Arman Tsarukyan likely getting the next shot, Chandler versus Oliveira for the next shot, and even Ilia Topuria, if he decides to move up, will definitely want to go for champ status. So there is literally no room for Justin Gaethje now, where he will probably retire with a couple of good fights, but I think that's it. What happened to Max Holloway? Also way too early to tell because of how recent it is, but Max did not have a good fate so far after becoming the BMF. He went back down to featherweight to fight Topuria for the bout. Sadly, it didn't go his way and he lost via KO for the first time in his life. Not to take anything away from Topuria, of course. I'm not saying this only happened because of the BMF curse. Clearly, Topuria is a future GOAT and a future #1 pound-for-pound fighter. But damn, Max had to go out like that, especially after the BMF win. I guess he died by the sword then. It's really hard to gauge Max's career now, considering he is still young, but he also joined the UFC really young too. So I would like it if Max does retire early for the sake of his health. He's done so much for the UFC already. But with that also being said, I can't see this guy winning anymore. I see him winning fights, but not the long game anymore. Right after his KO loss, he said featherweight probably isn't for him anymore, which is understandable. But what really is there for him in lightweight too? Yeah, he's top ranked, but it's kind of like he's top ranked, but also you are still miles away from a title shot as well. Not to mention, it's the super competitive lightweight division too. All I can see is another few banger fights and call it a career after that. I don't see Max Holloway beating Islam or Charles Oliveira or Arman Tsarukyan, who they are more of a full packaged fighter for lightweight. I just see Max having great fights against maybe a trilogy fight against Dustin Poirier, maybe a fight against Fiziev, and maybe a BMF fight against Dan Hooker. That's it, sadly. I would love to... Wait, no. I desire myself to be wrong here because I love Max. So, yeah. And finally, the bottom layer, which is just a prediction video. Yeah, I just wanted to hit your dopamine receptors thinking you got some nice content at the end. Nope. It's just my stupid ass and my stupid takes. Thanks for the ad revenue, bitch. Okay, I'm joking. I mean, kind of. But yeah, the UFC, or at least the MMA community, should have some caution looking into the future. Ilia is holding around a fake BMF belt, but it still says BMF on it. If he keeps walking around with it, it may not have a good look on him. If he believes he's the BMF, who knows how well that will pan out, especially how good he has his career now. Don't self-proclaim yourself as the BMF and then have your next super fight booked to fight, Islam or something. I can't guarantee that will end well. Not to mention the next BMF fight to make, officially, a lot of people are speculating a Dan Hooker versus Max Holloway fight for the next official BMF bout. Seeing how good Dan Hooker's career is going and Max's chin just got chipped for the first time and they are very evenly spaced in the lightweight rankings, are we going to be in complete shock if Dan Hooker somehow gets the TKO win against Max Holloway? I don't have a face cam on, but you can definitely hear my eyes darting back to back. And the storyline fits the new BMF holder too. Dan Hooker's big BMF win will most likely be his last win in his career too, possibly. Because by that time, he will actually be a 35-plus-year-old lightweight. So there is a lot of odds against him. He might end up being the next Masvidal, where he will be going for a crazy loss streak and he will retire, which an over 35-year-old lightweight should be doing anyway, but that doesn't mean he won't have banger fights though. I'm just saying there's a good chance they will end up being all losses. So what's your takeaway from this? The BMF bout is just haunted. I want to say cursed again, but I don't know. This is like next level. The status of BMF actually puts a crazy bounty on your head, almost on a spiritual level. And for the bottom of the iceberg, it was all Ben Askren's fault. It was his dying message and curse to the UFC community for getting knocked out cold in 5 seconds. People forget he was an amazing fighter, being 19-0 before his knockout. That spike in popularity for Masvidal sparked the idea of a BMF, which ultimately started this whole thing. So you can blame him. And where is he now? I have no clue. I think he's living life so well after that giant purse after the Jake Paul fight. So that's the video. Bye. No, wait, actually, a bonus. There's small hope for some UFC fans if we considered everything to be kind of true. Book the next BMF fight with Tony Ferguson, okay? The next fight has to be the last BMF fight, okay? We got to end it somewhere. The final BMF fight, Tony Ferguson versus Dan Hooker. That will be the only way the MMA gods will give this guy a win and break his world record losing streak. I'm just saying.